So, trigger warning here. This is I'm about to voice one of the strong opinions that this podcast is known for, which is that they just look like blobs. They're not very interesting.
Welcome to This Fucking Trail, home to brutally honest takes on Texas trails, hiking hilarity, and all things adventure-y. I'm your MC, Jon, and I'm here to warn you. This podcast is not for young children or anyone with a sensitivity to swears or strong opinions. And now over to the hiking hostess with the mostest, intrepid explorer, a firm potty mouth, and yes, my wife, Gabrielle.
Yep, that's me. Today is a park and trail intel, an episode that reveals all the down and dirty details about specific parks and trails. Does Big Bend National Park have flushing toilets? What rules about pooping in the backcountry are there? How many feet of elevation does the Peak Trail gain? Find out all this and more on our park and trail intel episodes. Specifically, today we're going to be talking about Finegan Springs Trail.
Okay, Finegan Springs, that famous trail that I have never heard of.
Well, you're going to want to hear about it because this is one of the most magical hikes that I have found in Texas.
Okay, I'm excited already. I love magic.
I do too. So this trail is located in Devil's River State Natural Area, the Del Norte unit. It's 1.4 miles one way with a whopping 22 feet of elevation gain. I think even you could handle this trail.
Wow, okay, that's a little personal. I will say, I did understand that Spanish there, Del Norte, so of the north. So I'm assuming this is on the north side of the state natural area? Or is it just maybe somebody's name? Or is my Spanish actually terrible?
Okay, I can't speak to your Spanish, but I don't know. There are two units now, but the other one is called the Dan Hughes unit. Okay. So it has nothing to do with South. Maybe we'll come back to the name when we actually go over. We are going to do an episode on Devil's River State Natural Area, the Del Norte unit. So I will do some research onto the name and we will talk about it.
All right.
So this 1.4 mile trail that is flat sounds pretty simple, right?
I mean, yes.
Wrong. The real challenge is actually getting to the trailhead.
Okay.
So like I said, Finegan Springs Trail is in the Devil's River State Natural Area. So first off, let's talk about what a state natural area actually is.
Yeah, what is that? Because we've got state parks, we've got national parks. Why do we need another thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So to quote the Texas Parks and Wildlife, a state natural area is a protected land area managed by a state government, with the primary focus on preserving its natural state and natural features, rather than prioritizing recreational activities like a state park.
Okay, so this is more about land preservation, wildlife preservation, whereas a state park is more about camping and hiking and
fucking up the land.
Yeah, throwing beer cans at each other, that kind of thing.
Well, remember, you're not allowed to consume alcohol in state parks in Texas.
Right.
Don't be throwing beer cans.
Dr. Pepper cans is what I meant.
All right, so what this means in practice is that it's actually a lot more challenging to access most state natural areas than it is to access a state park. So for starters, Devil's River State Natural Area is only open to the public Friday through Monday. The rest of the week, it is closed to public access.
All right, weekend warriors only, noted.
Yes. But apart from this, getting to this trailhead is the hardest part of this trail. So Devil's River State Natural Area is located in Val Verde County. Do you know where Val Verde County is, Jon?
I definitely do not know.
I didn't either. It's about 66 miles north of Del Rio, so it's out in the butt fucking nowhere. So apart from how long drive out to the middle of nowhere where nobody wants to go, you have to drive on a rough 22-mile gravel/dirt county road called Dolan Creek Road. It's not quite as rough as the gravel road leading into the interior of Big Bend Ranch State Park, but it is a rival. It's a close second, I would say.
Yeah, that's not a contest that you want to win.
No, it's not. So depending on your tires and honestly your level of recklessness, it takes about 45 to 90 minutes to cover the distance of that 22-mile long road.
Okay. So a little faster if you're in a Jeep and you know what you're doing. A little slower if you're everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I saw river outfitters flying down this road as I was crawling into it. And I'm sure they have good cars, good tires, and they can easily change a flat tire. Whereas I had a kiddo with me and really didn't want to change a flat tire. So I was a little bit more conservative.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
It took me closer to the 90 minutes, maybe even longer. I didn't time it. I don't really want to know. Okay, so then once you cover the 22 miles of Dolan Creek Road, you hit the park entrance.
Okay.
But from the park entrance to headquarters, where you have to check in, it's another 3 miles of this fucking dirt road.
All right.
Then from headquarters to get to the parking lot for the Finegan Springs Trail, it's another 4.5 miles on this gravel dirt road.
Love it.
Amazing, right? And this, actually, the 4.5 miles from headquarters to the parking lot for the trailhead is a little bit rougher than what you find on Dolan Creek Road. It's definitely doable for any SUV, could be challenging for a car, but you're going to be going even slower than you did on Dolan Creek Road. So at about 3.5 miles past the headquarters, there's a parking lot on the right. If you're driving a car, this is where you might want to park, because past this point, I was going to call it a trail, the road gets a lot more rough. Past this first parking lot, the road's going to drop down into Dolan Creek, and it's dry. I don't know how long it's been since it's been running, but it's very rocky. You're going through a creek bed. A car may not be able to handle it.
Okay, yeah. So it goes from you're going from Dolan Creek Road to Dolan Creek itself here. So that's about the level of fun you should be expecting in your vehicle, and how much fun your vehicle is capable of having is something you need to maybe think about.
Yes. All right. So if you keep going, whether on foot or if you've been driving a Prius or whatever, or if you keep going in your car, you've got about a mile left until you hit that last parking lot. You'll come up on a gate with a stop sign, and to the right of this is where you're supposed to park. Can't drive any further. So all told, to get to Finegan Springs Trailhead, it's about 30 miles of gravel road. So you really have to want to hike this fucking trail.
Yeah, okay. So this is a commitment from the outset.
It is. It's worth it, in my opinion.
All right.
So the supplies that you're going to need to hike this trail is you definitely need a lot of water. There's a lot of sun exposure on this trail, even though it is a short trail. And this is the Del Rio area. It is hot. This is desert.
Okay. Yeah, good note. Yeah. Always know the environment you're going into. That's what I've learned, because boy, that Texas sun don't fuck around.
It does not. So you're going to need a lot of sunscreen. You're going to need at least a sun hat. You might want some more protective clothing. I like to carry a light cotton pullover so that if my skin feels like it's too exposed, I can put that on to cover up, but it's relatively light, doesn't make me a lot hotter. And of course, snacks, however many calories you care to consume while you're out there.
Lots.
One thing I kind of want to get into before we talk about the trail itself is the importance of leave no trace principles. They're always important, but they are particularly important on this trail. The ecosystem here is really fragile, and there's not a lot of room for humans to be fucking around. The Devil's River is one of the best remaining examples in Texas of an ecologically intact river system. It's largely considered one of the last wild and pristine rivers in Texas. And having seen it now, I believe these claims. It's true. This place is fucking gorgeous. It's magical. It's wonderful. It's a treasure to our state, and it needs to be preserved. It needs to be protected. So we all need to practice the utmost leave no trace principles while we're out in Devil's River, particularly on Finegan Springs Trail.
All right, so I kind of want to give you a hard time here for getting on your soapbox and preaching to everybody, but at the same time, you know, I've seen a lot of the other rivers in the state, and it's hard for me to really be too mean to you about this point because, We definitely haven't done the best job preserving a lot of the rivers in this state. We could maybe do a little more. And if Devil's River is as gorgeous as you've made it out to be, and as the pictures I've seen would suggest, then I'm inclined to say, yeah, let's not fuck around, right? Let's leave no trace at all.
Yeah, it's one of those things, you almost hesitate to talk about some of these really sensitive trails and sensitive places because you don't want people to fuck them up. But at the same time, when people go out there and experience this magic trail for themselves, I'm hoping that they'll be inspired to protect this place and be inspired to be the best version of themselves that they can be. And okay, I'm getting a little bit too...
All right, Disney Channel. Let's follow our hearts on to the next subject here.
All right. So you park close to the stop sign. The first 0.4 miles is just walking down from the trailhead or from the parking lot down to the actual trailhead. You're following a road that you're not allowed to drive your car on. You're going straight down a hill towards the river. Okay. Boring AF.
Sounds fun to ride a bike on.
It's actually, the rocks out there are really chunky. I'm not a great mountain biker. I don't think I would have a fun time riding my bike down it, especially because then I'd have to be pushing my bike back up.
Okay, well, that's a good point.
All right, so as you head down this 0.4 mile section of the trail, you're going to see a composting toilet to the left right before you hit the river. This is the one and only amenity out there. So if you need to use the facilities, this is going to be your only opportunity.
Always a good note to know where the last toilet is, right? This is key hiking information here. I always want to know this. It can be hard to find out sometimes online. So if you are thinking about hiking this trail, this is the kind of thing where I would pause the show and write this down.
Take note.
Yes.
Yeah, and you're not going to be able to take a dump on Finegan Springs Trail unless you bring your wag bag. You're not going to be able to get 200 to 300 feet away from the water source, which is what you're supposed to do if you need to poop in the wilderness. So if you need to drop a deuce, you gotta do it in the composting toilet or you're gonna have to pack it out in a wag bag.
Duly noted.
All right, so once you have used the facilities, you're gonna head out on the trail, the rest of the trail. Now this trail parallels the river. So it's just going right next to the river the whole time.
That's cool.
Yeah. Within the first half mile, there's multiple spots that you can pop off and you can swim in the river. As you're headed down on that first 0.4 section of the trail, you're walking directly toward the river. You can go down and see the river there if you want to. That's actually a drop-in point for boats. It's called San Pedro Point. A lot of people will put their kayaks, their canoes in at that point. It's not a great spot for swimming because there's a lot of vegetation in the water. For anybody who doesn't like to be wading around in a bunch of leafy greens, this is not the spot to go swimming.
But it sounds like you just walk a little further on and you find some great locations for doing exactly that.
Exactly. If you just continue to follow Finegan Springs Trail, you're going to come up on some areas of the water where it's just water, no vegetation. And you're going to come on those in that first half mile of the trail. Along this section of the trail, there's some really nice boulders that are next to the river. Great for kids to climb on or adults who are kids at heart. My daughter was with me on this trail. Our daughter was with me on this trail, I should say. And she climbed all over a bunch of boulders, did some dramatic poses up on top of them.
As one does.
So you keep going, walking next to the river. You might pause and swim in the river for a little while, get a little bit distracted, but then you're going to get back on the trail. And you're going to find some springs along this trail, in case you couldn't tell. So when we got to the first spring, it was just a small area where we could see water trickling out from some cliffs. We couldn't quite identify its exact origination point. But this is a good opportunity, I think, to talk a little bit about Finegan Springs. These springs flow from the base of a cliff for about 200 yards. So as you walk along the river, there's cliffs to the right, and you've got these 8 springs that are kind of trickling out of these cliffs. They release about 12,000 to 22,000 gallons of water per minute. They're fed from groundwater from the Trinity Edwards Aquifer, and they're a key source of the river's flow. When we were at Devil's River State Natural Area in March of 2025. The ranger told us it was a lot closer to 12,000 rather than the 22,000. We're in a bad drought, and we really need to be careful about how we're using water here, or we may start to lose this beautiful river, despite following leave no trace principles.
Yeah, there's only so much we can do, right? If all that water is getting slurped up elsewhere, then the river goes away.
It does. So the flow of Finegan Springs, combined with the flow from the springs that are nearby at Dolan Creek, provides about 60% of the base flow of the Devil's River. So these are really, really important for this river. Along this section, you may have to hop from rock to rock to keep your feet dry as you're kind of seeing all these various springs that are trickling out. It's kind of fun. Everything out here just feels really wild and really pristine. And the water coming from the springs is crystal clear. And it's really rocky here, so there's no mud. You know, even if you're falling off of the rocks or choosing to go through the water's staying really clear because you're walking on rocks. Well, sometimes when you get in the water, you're stirring up a lot of mud, dirt, silt, and the water gets really nasty as you walk through it. That wasn't the case out here.
Always fun, I think, when you kind of can walk through like a rocky spring area, because the water is so clear that you can see right through it. I can kind of picture it now because we've been in some similar places before. And I gotta say, I'm pretty excited to put this one on my own list and check it off.
Yeah, it kind of doesn't feel like a place you would come up on in Texas because the water is so clear. It feels like something you'd find maybe in Vermont. We've kind of come across stuff like this in Vermont or Colorado where the water is so clean and clear. I don't know. I just don't usually associate that with Texas water, which is an unintentional dig, I guess. So out here along this section of Finegan Springs, there's no civilization. There's no houses. You don't see any boats on the opposite side of the river, which is privately owned. There's no human noise. It's just this river, these springs, and this trail. Along this stretch where the springs are, there's a lot of ferns, there's trees. There's supposed to be some great bird watching along Finegan Springs Trail. I'm not a bird watcher, not an ornithologist, so I can't really speak to that, but that's what the park proudly proclaims.
All right, so there are birds there. Presumably bird people know more about that.
Indeed. So I would just say, really take your time to savor this wild beauty. Take lots of pictures, take lots of video, climb the rocks next to the river, splash in the water. Like, this is a once-in-a-lifetime trail. You're going to continue rock hopping on the trail until you get to a place where there's no more exposed rocks for you to hop from rock to rock if you're trying to keep your feet dry. At that point, it looks like the trail continues to go, but it's covered in water. You can definitely see where you're supposed to be walking, but it's covered in water from these springs.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's very unique.
Yeah, I got a little bit confused there because I knew we hadn't gone the whole 1.4 miles of the trail, but I was like, well, there's no more land to walk on. So, you know, if you're headed down the trail, to the left, you've got the river, so you can't go out there and walk up the trail. And to the right, you've got some cliff faces, and it's really vegetated there. So I kind of actually went to the right towards the cliff faces to look and see, like, is there trail up in there that I'm supposed to follow? Nope, there's no way to go that way. You have to go up this pathway that's covered in water. And we did. And this was probably my favorite part of the trail because you're splashing through ankle deep water, limestone rock underneath. So again, it's not muddy. You're walking through this section, but you're not making the water look cloudy or nasty.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds absolutely gorgeous. So is it water all the rest of the way along the trail, or do we hit dry land again at some point?
I would say that it's probably less than a quarter mile that you're walking through the water, and then the path resumes on dry land. And this leads you to the dinosaur tracks.
Wait, you didn't tell me there were dinosaur tracks.
Yeah, I didn't want to spoil it for you. There's about 5 dino tracks that were left many, many years ago.
65 million-ish.
Yeah. So, trigger warning here. This is I'm about to voice one of the strong opinions that this podcast is known for, which is that they just look like blobs. They're not very interesting. They're about, I would say, 5 inches across, holes in the ground. If they hadn't been marked by signage, I would not have noticed them. I would have blazed right past. And not even Celeste was impressed by these tracks. Like, I kind of was watching her face as she looked at them, and even a 11-year-old wasn't impressed.
Yeah, I will say I think there are two audiences for dinosaur tracks, preserved tracks in the wild like this. One of those is professional archaeologists who actually know something about rock and history and are interested in these things scientifically and professionally. And one is very small children who they have the imagination to envisage, some massive creature passing through here, and their feet also can fit in those holes so they can kind of have a little fun pretending to be a dinosaur. I feel like for most of the rest of us, and I'm somebody, you know me, I love history and science, but I gotta admit that dinosaur tracks in the wild are interesting for about 30 seconds.
Yeah. So after the dinosaur tracks, the trail continues, and it's a lot more exposed. You are fully exposed to the sun here. So make sure you have that sunscreen and sun protection. And then as you continue along, it gets a little bit closer to the river again, and there's some foliage covering the trail. So after 1.4 miles, you're going to reach the end of the trail. It's marked by signage that politely informs you that this is the furthest the public is allowed to go. There's a little sign. Of note, I will say that when you hit this sign, it's not the park boundary. The park property continues for a little bit, so I was a little salty about that.
I can't tell.
Good. Here, like at the end of the trail to the left, the river is really wide. The river kind of widens and narrows a lot along this trail. But at this point, it's really wide. It looks really deep. Like there's sections where you can see the bottom of the trail of the river. But here, it looks really wide, really deep. And it's this particularly gorgeous color of blue. It's really, really magical. So Celeste and I kind of chilled there for a little bit, enjoying this particularly beautiful stretch of river. And then we turned around and we went back whence we came.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think from everything you've said, I'm convinced. I'm ready to go. And I think you are excited to go back. Yeah, we're going to have to put this one back on the list and go check it out. Anything else that we need to know about Finegan Springs Trail, or does that really cover it? Is that everything?
That, I think, really covers it. I would definitely recommend this trail.
All right. Well, we'll leave it at that. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to This Fucking Trail.
Happy hiking!